The Tokyo Extreme Racer series was deeply unique, a very different racing game experience, the likes of which I don't believe was ever really replicated. A peek into the world of Japanese highway racing culture. While it was clearly a very unrealistic arcade game, that never really stopped me from feeling deeply immersed in the world it portrayed. The game revolves around being an up-and-coming young street racer, getting attention from veterans of the scene, and carving out your very own story in the pantheon of drivers on the Shudo Expressway. The actual gameplay revolves around cruising the highways of Tokyo, weaving through traffic until you encounter another like-minded soul, and challenging them to a race. Flashing your lights activates a battle, and more like a fighting game, the cat-and-mouse style battles rely on depleting your opponent's SP bar rather than the raw timing or distance of the race. The longer the distance to your opponent, the quicker the SP drains, and the first with the depleted bar loses. The physics are 100% arcade, and while you can tune the basic handling aspects of your car, which does affect what and how the car responds to your input, no one will ever mistake this for realism, and in my opinion, that's all it should ever be. The world is delightfully devoid of any real consequences beyond losing a race. Crashing doesn't damage your car, police don't exist, and in fact, the traffic in the game holds their own secrets, but I'll get to that later. The AI is how you'd expect arcade racing AI to be, invulnerable to punting to an extent, seemingly unaware of your position at times, far too aware of other traffic at times, and easy to trick. Putting a car into a wall is sometimes very easy, but the same can be done to you even easier. If you want to race clean, then that's possible as well, but you can't expect the AI always to do so. I'm not sure if the personality of the drivers, which is surprisingly fleshed out, affects the way they drive, though I did race a former police officer who immediately tried to pit me. I have found that the AI will just ignore your position to avoid traffic, but I don't know if it's a glitch or a feature. This game is still in early access after all. At any time, you can go back into the garage to buy new cars, customize your car, read rival information, find rivals to hunt down, and actually a lot more. But when you want to move the story forward, the map has a nice list of objectives and it helps you locate your rivals. You can go back out through any on-ramps you've discovered, which you do simply by driving past them. When you find your mark, you can exit somewhere behind them and cruise up to them to battle. The map is so big, however, despite many different on-ramps, it can take quite a while to get to the opponents you want to battle. But this does provide some much-needed practice time for driving and testing out your car. I went ahead and sped this up by 500% just to illustrate exactly how long it can take to get to your rival. Luckily, it's also just an absolutely beautiful map. Tokyo looks incredible, as it always has, and with the modern graphics, it looks much better than it could have possibly looked 20 years ago. While the updated graphics make the cars and map look fantastic, the best and most charming part of this game has always been the rivals. Each character, of which there are dozens, is represented by a custom car, and while they are oftentimes pretty hilariously designed, a lot of them at least have some charm and are very much in tune with the personality and description of the character. This character right here is called Aki with the over-the-top nails, and true to that description, her shadow avatar in the game matches her name. The descriptions and backstories of the drivers are oftentimes hilarious and also reference each other, tying together bits of story that flesh out the world of TXR. Another feature that enhances the world and culture of the game are the parking areas, and of course the famous Daikoku PA is on the list, and it's instantly recognizable. No PA looks the same, but each feature your car parked up, a list of people to talk to, as well as a rival or two that you can race from the PA itself. The majority of the characters are there just to talk to and give more backstory and texture to the rivals you race, and I think it's a fantastic feature. Some of them are fans of racers, others you'll recognize as people you've raced or will race, but there are also some that give hints to find wanderers, which are unique rivals that are only available to race after having met certain conditions. I believe this is the first entry in the series that tells you exactly what you need to do to make a wanderer appear, but I might be wrong on that. The drivers you can approach have some fun conversational bits and allow you to challenge them directly. After the race, you're taken back to the PA, which is a nice feature. You can also find wanderers there as well, and this one I found told me exactly what I needed to do to race him, so I'll be back for him later. When back in the garage, there are many features you would expect from a racing game. The first that comes to mind is the dealership. Cars are unlocked via a currency called BP that you get from winning battles, and is used to unlock various other things which we'll get to in a moment. After unlocking the cars, you still have to purchase them. I'm still working on unlocking my IRL GR86 at the moment. When you defeat a boss, their car also becomes available to purchase just like in the older games. Next in line is your collection, where you view the cars you own. You can look at them, change cars, and perhaps most interestingly, change your license plate. I can only assume this system is accurate for how Japanese registrations go. You can select a business or a personal plate, a normal or a backlit plate, and then all the various details. Since the previous games, this has actually been one of the ways you would unlock certain wanderers. If my memory serves me correctly, one wanderer in the past would only race people from a certain region, which is changeable on the plate. One of the wanderers that I've already found in this game will only race people if they have something known as a Naniwa plate, and I actually have no clue what that means, so I'm gonna have to Google that later. Maybe you guys can help me. The reference menu is one of my favorite features in the game with the rival information, and I'm going to go more in depth in that in a bit, but you can also see that it stores a massive amount of record information. Your fastest run in each single segment of the map, as well as speed trap records, and as you can see, there are going to be online leaderboards. I'm really excited for this, and I bet there's going to be a big community of competitive TXR players. I wonder what else they have in store. The perk menu is super interesting to me. In what seems to be an RPG-inspired element, you can spend BP on general attack and defense, making the distance between you and rivals do more damage, on various skills that award bonuses for various things as well as persistent stat boosts, and finally, the ability to unlock various things. Beating certain rivals unlocks the ability to purchase items that then unlock more. You need to expand your wallet and garage, and this is also where you unlock the better cars. This portion seems a bit buggy at the moment, not always showing what you need to unlock items and not allowing you to scroll down, but I think that's due to this being pre-early access. You also need to spend BP on actual tuning parts, which you can then unlock to purchase, and then you can actually use to tune your car. When in the basic garage, you can choose different tire compounds which wear out as you are driving as you'd expect, with hards lasting the longest and softs providing the most grip, as well as equip your various perks. I'm really hoping there are some ridiculous perks to unlock later on in the game. The tuning menu is where you purchase unlocked parts to install, with each subsequent level unlocking more options for the setup. As you can imagine, the suspension is unlocked more and more as you go, starting with only ride height being adjustable, but even allowing you to tune your damper and spring settings later on. I haven't unlocked alignment yet, but some of the rivals have hilarious demon cambers, so you know the stance fans won't be left out. The LSD, braking, and even transmission are hilariously customizable, and while the tune will definitely affect the way the car handles, I think the most important in late game will probably be the transmission. You can change every single gear ratio as well as the final drive. I think it's hilarious the game has the same transmission tuning depth as Gran Turismo 7. As you can see, the option for the gears goes all the way up to 10th gear, and I'm not quite sure if that's actually usable in the game, but I'm looking forward to finding out. Another mainstay feature that's been present since the beginning and is absolutely a driving force behind the game is the visual customization. Body kits, neon, wheels, brakes, everything is customizable to a very high degree. After the game was announced and the social accounts started sharing various vendors, I was delighted to see that a ton of the most sought after and legendary wheel companies had signed on. With that said, 90% of us are going to throw on TE37s and no one is going to be surprised. Legendary body kit vendors that any JDM fan of the late 90s and early 2000s will recognize are also present. A mix of original fictional body kits from Genki and real kits are available. I still dream of one day owning a C-West S15. Someday. The livery design portion of the game is the same as you've probably seen on any other racing game. You can use various shapes and patterns to create what you want. I accidentally just threw on the camo and liked how it looked and ended up with the car I liked, which is surprising because livery creation, even at the lowest effort end, is absolutely not my forte. In the 3-ish decades I've played racing games, actually even more than that, this is the only time I've ever created a car design that I actually like. What do you think? I've mentioned the backstories for the various racers, and it has to be my favorite part of the game. Literally every single rival except the Wanderers has a backstory. Everyone's occupation is also listed, which is sometimes funny in itself, but the immense amount of detail and drama between the characters is so strange, so funny, and just perfect. For example, the team Rhythm Box is music-based. Far Away is all bird names, and I have no clue what ties departures together, but they are dramatic as hell. Great Finance mentions that he trolled a website so hard he could have been prosecuted, and that website is owned by his teammate CoolSite, whose chaos he feels partly responsible for. Going to CoolSite's info, you can see that his issue is that he incorporates every opinion on his site into his tuning and driving, which has led to it becoming increasingly dangerous. What on earth did Great Finance do to this guy to drive him to even tune his car dangerously? What could that mean? His livery is not great, and it's very appropriate for a YouTube video. I mentioned before that the traffic seemed to hold secrets, and this is 100% uninformed speculation from me, but I think this was possibly the reason all the car and parts manufacturers were happy to sign on to a street racing game. All of the traffic on the street can be raced. I approached a random car and a name appeared over it as the Nameless One. I thought I found a secret rival, but as I approached every other car later on, I realized you can flash your headlights at literally every single car on the road, and they will race you. And when I say all of them, I mean all of them. This seems to indicate to me that this is not just a simulation of a fantastical world where street racing happens like it's in an anime, but everyone on the track is just a willing participant, not just an innocent person that could be injured. This actually reminds me of a GT7 video I made where I convinced 15 of my friends to roleplay as traffic so we can have TXR style battles in GT7. I'll link that just in case you're interested in seeing it. I'm kind of jumping all over the place, and I don't really have an overall idea of how I wanted this to be laid out, but there's one more thing that I wanted to show you that really goes with the rest of the charm and beauty of this game. The story is so over the top. Everything is so incredibly dramatic, and I don't know if they're trying to be corny or if it's an accident, but either way, it's wonderful. I'm gonna just go ahead and leave this screen up here so you can see exactly what it's like when you move forward in the story. I think oftentimes people judge corny things too much and refuse to let themselves have fun. Just go ahead and read this in your head with the best dramatic movie announcer voice you got and tell me you don't absolutely love it. Those who grow feverish like moths to a flame, they swarm around young racers. Episode: Return of the Bastards. I can't believe I almost forgot about this, but there's something called a bad name, B.A.D, and I cannot figure out what that even stands for, and I don't think I ever knew, but the various actions, how you drive, your wins, etc. all come together and they assign you various names. What's your bad name? When it comes to the graphics and overall gameplay, I've been racking my brain for the past week trying to figure out how to explain how I feel about this game without sounding like I'm taking a dig at it. I can't stress enough that what I'm about to say is what I consider complimentary, and I find absolutely no fault in this, but the game appears to have been entirely unaffected by racing game and gaming culture in the 18 years since the last title dropped. The overall UI and menu look and sound exactly like they did nearly 2 decades ago, and back then, they seemed about a decade old already. The music is reminiscent of any and all generic rock and pop music you'd find from any Japanese classic, and again, the game is all the better for it. Nothing in this game would be out of place or groundbreaking even 18 years ago, and I think it's beautiful. The game needed no changes then, and it needs none now. The cars look beautiful, the map itself, while not nearly as detailed as anything you'd find in other racing games of today, is still absolutely gorgeous, and I feel like it's exactly the sequel I would have wanted, just zhuzhed up to modern standards. In conclusion, if you love the TXR series, I can guarantee you will absolutely adore this one. If you haven't played one of these yet, I implore you to give it a chance. There really isn't anything like it, and I desperately hope for their success. Not only because they deserve it, but we deserve more sequels. My fingers are crossed for the Tokyo Extreme Racer Drift spin-off to come back as well. Thank you so much for watching. I want to continue to expand the type of content I make, so if you ever have any ideas of things you'd like to see, please don't hesitate to let me know. And as always, I'll leave you with a look at my current members. Thank you for believing in me. I love you all.